After nearly a full decade, we finally have the long-awaited sequel to Disney and Pixar's Inside Out, with the appropriately titled Inside Out 2. As of the recording of this video, Inside Out 2 has taken the box office by storm, scoring the biggest opening weekend ever internationally for an animated movie, and the second biggest weekend ever domestically for an animated movie, only behind another Pixar sequel being Incredibles 2. Though it has been almost 10 years for us, it has only been a short few years for our lead character Riley Andersen and her characterized emotions. She's now 13 and life is changing dramatically. She's headed off to high school, she's grown a lot since we last saw her, and the big one is finally knocking at her door, puberty. And as most of us know well, with puberty comes a whole wave of new emotions we've never experienced before. Well, the same goes for Riley, as she now has to deal with embarrassment, envy, ennui, aka boredom, and the most challenging of them all, anxiety. So, did Pixar deliver on this highly anticipated sequel? Let's find out. Hello ladies and gentlemen and movie lovers of all kinds, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host Brett Murphy, and for today's video I have a brand new ranking for you all, and I am going to be ranking all 9 of the Pixar sequels. Before I hop into the actual ranking itself, I just wanted to let you all know that I have an entire playlist dedicated to all of my ranking videos. There are well over 100 videos in that playlist for you to enjoy, so if movie rankings are your thing, then be sure to check that out, and I guarantee you'll find something you like. And so, without further ado, let's hop right into things. Coming in at number 9, unsurprisingly, is Cars 2. I really think this movie would have been so much better if they would have focused on just the World Grand Prix tournament and the challenges it presented Lightning. We could have traveled the world, seen all of these new locations, and got to explore these new cultures with our characters like we got to do in the original movie with Radiator Springs. There's even more in there too besides just the racing. They could have also put more of a focus on the intricacies of the feud between Lightning and Mater, or looked more into the way everyone handles the passing of Doc Hudson. In my humble opinion, they should have left all of the spy stuff out and let it be a completely different movie all on its own. I would love an all-out Pixar spy movie. Not to mention, putting all of the focus on Mater was such a bad idea. Mater as a character works best as a side character. You know, Lightning's goofy but big-hearted best bud, and a bit of comedic relief for the audience. My number 8 pick is going to be Finding Dory. Yes, this movie is kinda, sorta, almost exactly the same movie we got the first time around with Finding Nemo, except more Dory. Some people might have enjoyed this one more than I did. I know there are plenty of Dory and Ellen DeGeneres fans out there. I still enjoyed it quite a bit too. Like, there is a huge gap for me between this one and the last entry, Cars 2, which I think is just flat out the worst Pixar movie there is. Still watchable, but easily the weakest of their offerings. What it does well though is the new characters, the fun new setting, which was the perfect place to set a sequel about fish, as well as the conflict that Dory feels between her real family and the family that she has made for herself with Nemo and Marlin. It could have been stronger for sure, because I, for one, adore Finding Nemo, but for what it was, it works. And coming in hot at super number 7 is Incredibles 2. Incredibles 2 was in a very unique situation when it was released. This was a sequel we waited 14 whole years for. Expectations were extraordinarily high, as the first one was not only adored upon its release, but had become a bona fide classic at that point in time. For me, this one both did and didn't disappoint. I really did enjoy the increased focus on Elastigirl. That's probably the movie's biggest selling point and strongest asset. I also really liked the expansion of this superhero universe. I mean, at the time of its release, the MCU and then DCEU were running the box office. So I actually enjoyed meeting all of the new and original heroes. I didn't mind the little arcs the rest of the family members got to go on either, but I didn't think they were anywhere near as strong as they were in the original. However, the movie's biggest downfall for me was the villain. I mean, Syndrome from the original is freaking iconic at this point. Between the memes and the brilliant performance from Jason Lee, the villain origin story, it's all perfect. Not only was the villain themselves not very interesting to me, but the reveal felt completely obvious from the start, and so it fell super flat. Even with that though, there's still lots of fun to be had. I enjoy it and revisit it often, but it very much sits in the shadow of the original and likely always will. Pulling up into that number 6 spot is going to be Cars 3. Cars 3 is one that gets bagged on a lot by the masses, and I never understood that. For me, it was a huge course correction after the lackluster Cars 2. This movie is all about the concept of passing the torch. It's about Lightning knowing he's past his prime, needs to learn to let go and find that next step in life. I feel like this was the perfect story to tell, as this is a big thing with athletes. A time always comes when they still have the heart to go, but the body just can't anymore. Of course though, this is very much so still a kids movie, so naturally, it does have a ton of goofy stuff for kids to enjoy too that still got a chuckle out of me. And I know some people are already typing up their angry comments that I put this ahead of Incredibles 2, but the last thing I have to mention about this movie is that the promo material they put out went way harder than it needed to. I mean, this movie looked like it was going to be very dark, and I loved it. They released one of the greatest movie posters of all time, and that just added an extra little bit to push it ahead of Incredibles 2. Personal preference and all, of course, but yeah, Cars 3 I've always enjoyed. Number 5 has to be Toy Story 4. A lot of people are probably going to be pretty mad about this one too, but I will stand by this till the end of time. I really do like the messages woven throughout this movie about moving on, new beginnings, and so on. And before I lay into it just a little bit too, I want to quickly say, don't get me wrong here. The movie is not without its charm and a few good laughs. Not to mention the animation is freaking gorgeous. Truly some stunning work in here. But I've never been able to shake the feeling that this movie is so completely and utterly unnecessary. And that's because Toy Story 3 had the perfect ending. I mean, quite literally one of my favorite endings ever in any medium. Movies, TV, gaming, books, you name it, and Toy Story 3 will always be near the top. And look, I'm not going to go on a mightier than thou rant or anything here. This movie didn't need to justify its existence to me or anyone else. But if they did have to, then they did not succeed, at least in my eyes. The ending always really pissed me off too, if I'm being completely honest. To me, it feels like they took Woody's entire arc across the last 3 movies and threw it out the window just so he could be with Bo Peep. There also wasn't anywhere near enough of the rest of the cast either. The new additions were fun though, admittedly. I mean, you had Key and Peele in there, Keanu Reeves, Tony Hale, and I liked them all. I do want to end by saying that I will always accept a new adventure with these characters. They're some of my all-time favorites, as the first Toy Story is a top 10 movie of all time for me, so the more I get of this gang, the better. I will wholeheartedly admit that I am terrified, though, for the upcoming Toy Story 5, seeing as how I feel that this one comes nowhere near the brilliance of the original 3, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Number 4 is a bit of a wild card pick that some of you might not be expecting to see, and that is Monsters University. I actually really liked this prequel. Yes, I know this is a sequel list, but it's the second Monsters, Inc. movie, and it's the only prequel movie that Pixar has, so I'm not gonna do a prequel list, and I refuse to not talk about it because I clearly really enjoy it given that it's way up here on this list. Even though it doesn't really come close to the heights of its predecessor, it does give us a fantastic backstory to Mike and Sully's friendship. The movie is chock full of some exceptional teachable moments for folks of all ages, and I am a huge sucker for a good underdog story, which this is. I also really did vibe with all of the new characters we got to meet. They were all quirky, weird, and unique in their own ways. a group of lovable outcasts who come together through unlikely circumstances and grow to care deeply for one another through working together. I really did love the increased focus on them. So all in all, despite being a prequel, it's one of the best follow-ups in Pixar's history. Number 3, taking the bronze medal in today's video, is the recently released Inside Out 2. I knew I was going to love this one. I went in with high hopes, but knew to keep my expectations in check because I haven't loved everything Pixar has done the last couple of years. I adore the first one. It's one of my favorite Pixar movies, and it gets me every time. I mean, I sob watching the first movie. So well done. I'm so happy this one didn't disappoint. My only gripe is that portions of it felt a little too familiar, like retreading some of the same territory, and I wish we could have substituted those for something a little newer. Don't get me wrong though, there's plenty of new in here, but a little more wouldn't have hurt either. The new emotions are fantastic. I could have used even more of the others outside of anxiety, but when they did get the spotlight, they were sure to use it effectively. Speaking of anxiety, she stole the show here. Maya Hawke's voice work and the character. As someone who suffers with some pretty severe anxiety and have all my life, so much of this movie just spoke to me. It really got me deep, and I appreciated Pixar taking the leap and exploring even more complex emotions in this sequel, as I'm sure many older folks will too, because yes, it's a kids movie, but there really genuinely is messages in here for everyone. The emotions from the original you already know and love are just as good, if not even better. I am surprised to say that I didn't miss Mindy Kaling and Bill Hader at all. I thought their replacements were excellent. And I think we got much more of disgust, fear, and anger this time around too. I'd say Joy is still the star of the show though, and Amy Poehler wowed me once again. Though I didn't personally resonate with Riley's story as much this time around, there was still plenty in here for everyone to relate to, I think. Not their best sequel, clearly, seeing as how it's in the 3rd place spot, but certainly a valiant effort that comes shockingly close to the original. Coming in at number 2, claiming that runner-up spot on the podium for this video, is Toy Story 3. Toy Story 3 is truly where the story should have ended, if you ask me. Although I don't personally believe it's as strong as its 2 predecessors, I do believe it ended everything on a perfect note. And when I say perfect, I truly do mean perfect. I loved all the new characters we were introduced to, I loved the new setting, I loved seeing the toys come together for this new adventure. The comedy works well, the stakes are higher than ever, and it really does seem like they wanted it to be the ending, and I personally think it should have been if you couldn't already tell. I have a few little nitpicks with it here and there, but they're honestly not even worth getting into, because all of them got wiped away pretty damn quickly with that flawless, masterfully executed ending. Again, no, I don't think it's as strong as the first 2 Toy Story movies, but it's still like a top 10 Pixar movie. Like, I still freaking love it. And coming in at number 1, if you couldn't have surmised already, it is Toy Story 2, the original Pixar sequel. I mean, there's not much I can say about this one that hasn't already been said. It's a classic, it's iconic, and there are plenty of people out there who actually have Toy Story 2 as their favorite Toy Story, or even their favorite Pixar movie. The story focuses very heavily on self-discovery. Almost all of our main characters go through this in some capacity, which to me has always fed right into all of the emotions. Sitting through this movie as a kid, and even now, it's heartbreaking, uplifting, beautiful, and crushing all in one. I mean, Jesse's backstory has to be one of the saddest movie sequences in history. Seeing this as a young kid and growing up with it had a major impact on me personally. Sure, this may sound a little dramatic to most people, but as someone who grew up as an only child for almost 8 years, I spent a lot of time with movies and games. The first 2 Toy Story movies are some that I watched the most, and I learned a metric ton from both of them. In the end, it's clear that Pixar took a huge swing with this one at the time of its release. They really did go for the bigger and better sequel, and if you ask me, they damn well nearly got there. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments below if you agree or disagree with my ranking. While you're at it, don't forget to let me know how you would rank all 9 of the Pixar sequels and 1 prequel, so I guess 8 sequels and 1 prequel. Nevertheless, though, that's because I refuse to leave out Monsters University, so I don't think you should either. As a reminder, this is the revamped BAM2 movies, and it is your one-stop for everything movies. Be it rankings like this one, video essays, top 10s versus videos, tier list videos, I have it all and so much more, along with your daily nerdy news wrap-ups. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that little bell icon so you don't miss a thing. One last thing that I've been mentioning in my videos lately, please don't forget to follow us on all of our social media pages to stay up to date on the latest news in the worlds of movies, TV, and video games. Yes, we cover all 3, so you no longer have to follow a dozen different pages or channels to keep up with everything. Just follow our one and you've got it all in one place. The links are in the description. As always, folks, I thank you all so very much for watching. Stay happy, healthy, and safe out there. From myself and the rest of the BAMTube team, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time, and that's a wrap.